Hey everyone, we are here today to talk a little bit more in depth about the Greek philosophers that came out of Athens. And so as we're looking at this, we want to make sure that you really kind of get the gist of who these key people were and going a little more in depth than what your reading was. So first of all, is we've looked at both from the Crucible of Civilization and the documentary Watch with Liam Neeson, we've seen that Athens is really emerging as a cultural hub. It is a mixture of ideas, of education, of beliefs. We know that it was in some ways, very democratic, with direct democracy, kind of voting with those pebbles. And so we're seeing that it makes sense that out of this area, we are going to see philosophers kind of emerge because there was that freedom to have ideas. And so philosophy is essentially just based on reason, and people are kind of thinking through why is the world the way that it is today. And so here's just a little intro video, a little bit about Socrates, who will be the first one that we will look at.
Groovy Greeks.
One of our famous Greek thinkers was called Socrates. His sharp mind got him into trouble, and he was sentenced to death. Luckily, he had some very determined friends.
Halt! Who goes there?
No one, if you were to look the other way.
Are you trying to bribe a prison guard? You insult my honor, you insult... Yeah, all right. This is the key to the cells, you're going to need that. And this is the key to the baths, should you want one. My name's Cliff. Just give us a shout if you need anything. Socrates, quick, follow us.
Why?
We're rescuing you.
Why?
Because you've been sentenced to death.
Why?
Partly because you keep saying why, which is really annoying. Especially for people with little kids, because they get it all the time anyway.
Only by asking why can one get to the real truth. It's the Socratic method. It's got my name on it.
Yes, but that's also why they've condemned you to death. Plus, they've accused you of corrupting the youth of Athens and disrespecting the gods.
Why?
Not now, Master. We're here to rescue you.
I don't want to be rescued.
Why?
Don't you start.
Master, you must come with us. For in the morning, you are to be made to drink this poisonous hemlock.
Look, no real philosopher fears death. If you rescue me, people will still find me really annoying. I'll end up in prison again.
Yeah, I've got a point.
You may be the greatest philosopher who ever lived, Master, but you are so annoying.
Oh, why?
I think you've just answered that question yourself.
Why?
Seriously, I've had it up to here with you.
Why?
Right, where's that hemlock? I'm gonna kill him myself.
We're supposed to be rescuing him.
Why?
So just a little fun as we get into Socrates and who he is. The video kind of gave a good little overview of some of the basic of, he really was an Athenian citizen that really was questioning the way that society worked. He had a method kind of called the Socratic method, or Socratic questioning, of really understanding the why behind things. And so he was known, and this kind of gets you in trouble. If you're a person that's always kind of questioning authority, if you're always questioning the way that things are, people don't always like you. So he's very critical. In some ways that he questioned whether or not Athens was superior to even Sparta, and kind of made some comments that Sparta had some things together, and we know that that's going to be kind of a big deal as we see how there's going to be conflict. And if you chose to watch the other Greek video, part 3 of Crucible Civilization, we see this tension between Athens and Sparta and what's going to happen with the Peloponnesian War. So his ultimate goal was to become virtuous and teach people how to become virtuous and understand the reality of things, not necessarily just become rich. So when we're looking at this and kind of understanding the dates too, if you look at the dates here, 470 to 399 BCE, we're still really way before some of the other things that we've learned already in this class. So just kind of be aware of that. And he really didn't write anything down. He really, like we said, challenged conventional ideas. And some of the quotes that you might be familiar with from Socrates. He came up with the one that says, "As for me, all I know is that I know nothing." Kind of getting back to the questioning, and that he doesn't know for certain anything. And so, but he does know for certain that he doesn't know everything, because he knows nothing. And then he also has this quote, "If a man would move the world, he must first move himself." That might be pretty popular. And then finally another one, this kind of a big one. He says, "The unexamined life is not worth living." So kind of going back to challenging conventional ideas, going back to understanding and being a reflective person is kind of what Socrates was all about. And so he would go on out and philosophize, and he would talk to people and question. And so he kind of had these following of people, which made him looked at very dangerously. And ultimately, as we get and talk about his trial, because he's going to be put on to trial, and he tries to defend himself because people said he was ultimately corrupting the youth of Athens. And so because of this charge, they said, hey, you're going to be sentenced to death. And we'll read the apology then, as you will do that for homework as well, and you'll kind of understand a little bit more about that. Now, the apology is going to actually be written by Plato, and Plato is one of Socrates' followers, his disciples. He would learn from him. And so as we're looking at this, he wrote once of all the apology, but he also wrote the Republic, which really talks about ideal kind of sense of government. Like Plato was really big at kind of looking at hey, there should be some sort of philosopher king that kind of leads the country in a way where they can understand the way things really should be and how a good society works. And that's all outlined in the Republic. He also had a really intense theory of forms and idea, which is entirely difficult to explain. I had a class in college and we went really in depth with this, and I still did not understand it all. He wrote the Allegory of the Cave, which I'm going to just kind of quickly start, and there's a video, and I'll attach it to this as well, that if you want to watch the Allegory of the Cave and kind of have your mind messed with a little bit, you can watch that, because it's this whole writing that he did, and I had to read it in a college class, and it's quite confusing. But the video probably will let you kind of understand a little bit more about his theory of forms and ideas, that things aren't necessarily the way that we see, and that ultimately our goal is to be able, once we find reality, is to bring reality and share that reality with other people. And so if you watch the YouTube video about that, that might be helpful for you. He also then founded the Academy, which would be a place where people can then go and learn in Athens. And basically, he did this. So just so that you are aware of that. So those are the key things here. Here's a little bit.
This will be a brief introduction to the Allegory of the Cave. This is part of a Socratic dialogue in Plato's Republic. I'll drop some links below if you'd like to read along. However, others have done quite a good job presenting this, so I'm going to let Orson Welles talk, and in my next few videos, I will be diving further into Plato's Republic.
So take that. But you'll see here, here's a little intro.
In a parable, to what extent our nature is enlightened or unenlightened. Envision human figures living in an underground cave with a long entrance across the whole width of the cave. Here they have been from their childhood and have their legs and necks chained so that they cannot move and can only see before them, being prevented by the chains from turning their heads around.
You get the point there. At the bottom of the end of the story, you'll kind of understand this. If you watch the video, these people tied up their whole life, and all that they can see is shadows, which they think is real. And Plato gets into talking about how those shadows are truly shadows, and once you understand where it's coming from, and you're enlightened and whatnot. So check that out. It would be something good. Plato also said the price that good men pay for indifference is public affairs is to be ruled by evil men. So all in the Republic. So the Republic, which has the Allegory of the Cave in it, essentially. And then also the Apology, which is for Socrates' trial, two of his most famous works. And then finally Aristotle is going to be the last one, and we've probably heard of him before. And now he's going to be a disciple of Plato at the Academy. So Aristotle's a disciple of Plato. Plato's a disciple of Socrates. Now, he's actually going to be a teacher for Alexander the Great, and he's going to focus more on logic. He's going to focus on natural studies, things that can be measured by our senses. And so he's going to write some of these really complex things, trying to understand what's the Greek way of knowing. How can we practically, measure what we are seeing? He focused really on the empirical observations, kind of getting into early scientific method, and so it focused a lot about kind of logic and ration. And so this is kind of a new age, and he was known, as we said, kind of as a teacher for Alexander the Great. So 3 really key philosophers. Hopefully that helps you kind of understand kind of where we're coming from, and understand that in Athens, all these people are really kind of digging in and trying to understand why is the world the way that it is. And ultimately, these guys were really key within history, and you can kind of dig in a little bit deeper as we look at the Apology. So we'll look at this more tomorrow, and have a good one.